Hey Ryan, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
Right on. I'm great. I'm glad we got this figured out. I was a bit nervous there for a second, so I really appreciate you joining me today. I've been fortunate to know you for quite a long time, and you've seen me change over the years, I guess we can say. So
For sure.
I have a high level of respect for you. You're a mentor of mine, and we're just going to shoot through some questions today and try to help other coaches that are part of the Volleyball Coaches of Canada Facebook page. And if any coaches that are online, feel free to write a comment to the bottom, a question, and we'll go from there. Does that work for you, Ryan?
Sounds good.
Is that good for you, Ryan?
Works great. Yeah.
So you've been coaching the women's Trinity team since 2006 as the head coach. You've had some great success. The Trinity volleyball program in general, men's and women's, have done extremely well over the years. What got you into coaching, and tell us a little bit about your, player/coaching background.
I would say my wife got me into coaching. She was hired as the head coach here back in '99. And we thought I came down simply as an at-home dad to take care of our kids. And then I just started, we built a club because we felt we needed to create a feeder program. So I started coaching in the club. And then I started assisting with the men's program. And then I grew to assisting to Carol. And then I took over for her for a maternity leave. And then she came back and we worked together. And then I took over for another maternity leave. And so I pretty much just slept my way to the top, and then I just started getting involved in all kinds of other stuff. And so I started doing provincial team and then national team programs. And so I just started to fall in love with the game.
Right. Fair.
As a player, I played college for 4 years. I wouldn't say I was an amazing player, but I love the game. I didn't start at it till late. And I'd say most of my greatest success was after college when we played grass, beach, and all that kind of stuff afterwards.
Right. Now you went to it was Briarcrest, right? That you played
Correct.
years with. Now,
yeah.
During your, let's go way back into your high school years. Was there someone that really pushed you into the sport? Was there an inspiration, that said, "Hey, Ryan, maybe we can play at a, that you have the ability to play at a higher level"?
Yeah, there's some guys that took a risk on me in grade 10. Norm Hansen was the head coach of our club team in Kelowna. And Rob Dick was a part of that, and Kerry Gatsky was a part of that, and all these legends who have played high-level youth sports, all of a sudden just kind of took a chance on me, and they threw me on this team, and that started my love for the game. And so it was a ton of fun.
So we'll be careful on the questions here because I know you coached with your wife. How was it coaching together? That's a tough thing, right? It goes home with you. So was it smooth sailing, or was there rough patches, or was it trying to figure out how you guys work well together regarding business rather than obviously family life?
Yeah, I think people would be surprised at how little we talked about volleyball at home. And so we have two completely different skill sets.
Okay.
And so she's this administrative, organized, really structured person who just basically took care of everything behind the scenes.
Right.
And then we worked together on a lot of stuff. And so she gave me practice planning, scouting, prepping, and all this other stuff, these team meetings. And so it actually worked. We worked really well together, didn't have very much conflict. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed coaching with my wife, and those were fun years together that we had.
Awesome. And I know that she's still she's the athletic director with Trinity, isn't she?
Yeah, she's one of the associate ADs.
Oh, so associate ADs. Awesome. Yeah, no, I know that we crossed paths a long time ago in the club scene back in BC. And I've obviously been following your guys' success over the years and been crossing paths with you at nationals. So what are your steps for creating the culture and the environment for a successful program?
Yeah. I believe one of the things that, and I'm still working on trying to get better at this, but I believe that there's 3 dimensions to coaching.
Okay.
The first dimension is all the X's and O's. You know, you're learning how to scout, you're learning how to practice plan, you're understanding the laws of learning and how to teach passing and all the different skills. And you need to have a really good fundamental base at that in order to be successful.
Right.
If you can't teach, you're going to run into some trouble.
Okay.
After that, I think there's a lot of coaches in our league who have that. I believe if you want to layer it again, there's this second dimension is the mind and the emotions, the psychology, dealing with the challenges that come up just with struggles and day-to-day things. And so you're now looking at how to train mental training, the psychology of it, and all that component that goes along with it. And then I think there's another layer after that. And the third dimension is now starting to look at how they all connect with necessarily your identity, with your self-esteem, your worth. And it's almost like the soul component of who you are. And those three dimensions, and I think you're still learning in all of the dimensions, but I'm really trying to get that third one hammered in, because I think we have too many people nowadays whose identity is wrapped up in this sport. And when you take the sport away from them, they look at it, and for the next 6 months, they don't know who they are. And so if we can help athletes discover who they are, it's way better. Everywhere I go, I get connected. And I'm struggling with that all the time. I go to church. How's the team? I go to the mall. Hey, you lost on the weekend. What happened? I lose. My phone blows up. What happened? And so I'm regularly being connected to my sport. And so one of the themes we had last year was who you are is greater than what you do. And so discovering who you are and separating it from this do part, because if you connect them, your identity is only in one thing. And when that's gone, what happens? And so I believe that's the last third dimension that I'm really trying to work hard at discovering.
No, and I that's a great point. I mean, a saying that I always say to my club athletes is, "There's more to life than volleyball." And again, based on a developing coach and moving forward and growing myself as a coach to give the athletes the best opportunity. I don't think that was when I first got into coaching. That was my logic. My logic was obviously, a good coach is one that wins. A good coach is, let's go back to the winning point again, and now it's more like, eventually this sport you'll play, hopefully we want these kids to play for the rest of their lives, but after it's over, where are you in the real world when you're only playing recreational league and stuff like that. So with that said, do you work on goal setting that is volleyball specific, and then goal setting that is outside the court, outside the game type of goal setting on just themselves as a person?
Can you hear me, Dave? Mike, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. It's a little bit spotty.
Okay.
But I heard you ask about goal setting.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if you work with goal setting that is volleyball specific on courts, and goal setting as as being a better human. Is there two sides to it?
Last year we did something very general, and I've done a lot of different types of goal setting. We asked them two questions, and Giselle Kruger from Calgary led us through this, and she did a wonderful job. Is what do I want? So the answer. On my whiteboard, everybody's going to have different goals that they're going to be working on, and so Susie is going to write up what she's going to be working on for that week, and we can task her with that. But we're pretty specific on what we're working on. For example, like training camp, everybody's working on a lot of the same stuff, and then we'll get a little bit more specific as time goes.
No, that's fair, and you're right. So
I'm wondering if I should find a different place. I'm going to go for a quick walk.
Oh, we're Am I cutting out as well?
Yeah, you are. Yeah. I'm going to meet
Now we're getting a behind the scenes look at what the Spartans facility looks like.
Sure. Is that any better?
That's a lot better. That's a lot better. Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so with practice, do you normally are you guys doing like 2-hour practices, 3-hour practices, hour and a half? What's your time frame to get the optimal performance out of an athlete?
Training camp right now, we're going 2.5 hours. I rarely practice longer than 2 hours.
Okay.
And so if I've structured everything well, I'm going to get a lot done in those 2 hours.
Okay.
And those 2 hours are going to get me a bunch of learning in there. They're going to get me a lot of game time. And yeah, we don't go longer than 2 hours.
Okay, fair. Now, how many drills would you normally run in a 2-hour session?
Anywhere from, I'm going to say from 4 to 7.
4 to 7? Okay, and it just
yeah, I'm not this big. I used to have this big long drill bank of 100 drills, and I've really started to narrow it down to a really select few. And then I'm getting really picky with the ones I love and the ones that get the most amount of transfer, and then away I go with them.
Okay, so you would, I would say, is there roughly what, 10, 15, 20 drills that are kind of your go-to drills?
For sure. I don't have a lot more than that.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. And I just think some of the newer coaches feel that they always have to do something new. I mean, new is good, but also if there's something that works, don't fix something that's not broken, right? So it's a tool. And
Marv Duncan.
Sorry?
Marv Duncan from Pepperdine took a lot of pride in the fact that he had 4 drills.
Okay.
And if he had more than 4 drills, he was like, there's a problem. And so he really took pride in that.
Yeah, and I think there's, I think it's all about, me personally, I think it's about having tools in the toolbox, right? If you're, trying to build a house and there's a screw that needs to go into a door frame, you're not using the hammer. You might have the tool, but you don't need to use it for that certain, aspect. So same in volleyball, just because, having a lot of tools is great, but, relying on the tool that is needed and the time to benefit the athlete or benefit the team is crucial. So that's interesting. So what fundamental principles have you kept true to over the years of being successful with your team?
I was really fortunate to have a good mentor in the late Carl McGowan.
Okay.
And McLaughlin was one of his mentors. And those two gentlemen really, I believe, taught me the laws of learning.
Okay. And
what it really means to be a teacher and how to get the most amount of transfer from the practice to the game. And so following, like, for example, specificity is everything is specific. Do we have general specific, or is it general or specific? And so for me, if it doesn't look, smell, taste like volleyball, it's not likely going to happen in our gym.
Nope.
We don't do funny little ladders and different things. If it doesn't look like volleyball, you're not going to see it in my gym.
Okay.
And so to follow that laws of learning, to get transfer, to get whole versus part training, I believe has been one of the absolute keys to being successful.
Okay. Now, when you're recruiting a player, going out and going to nationals or going to high school games or whatnot, something that you're looking for in an athlete, or 3 different levels, let's say, is there 3 different things? Because you talked about the triangle at the start. What's your keys to finding the right fit for your team?
Yeah, I think everybody, if they're really honest, is looking for a kid that's got freaky skills. So they're jumping out of the gym. They've got a big arm. They're tall. Like they're physical.
Right.
I think everybody's honest. Everybody wants that kid.
Right.
And then after that, you're looking at their mind. How do they deal with conflict? Because there's some kids that are just feisty and they're competitive and they don't give up. I'm looking for someone who has resilience. Resilience might be one of the most important traits now that I'm looking in an athlete. How easily do they give up? What's their mindset? Are they optimistic? Are they pretty down on themselves? Because some of that stuff I'm realizing is really hard to change. And so after I'm looking for those different special skills, I'm looking for their mindset, and then I'm looking what kind of teammate will they be.
Right.
And so every athlete that I recruit gets vetted by my team. So they come and they meet, and if we do a really good job ahead of time, they know that they're going to be great teammates with that other person.
Now, how do you, what would be your best words of wisdom regarding team cohesion? How do you get your team together at the start of the season during training camp? What, I mean, and I'm thinking more outside of volleyball stuff. Like, is there certain stuff you guys do? Do you guys go away for a weekend? I don't know, and hike the mountains? I'm not sure. Like,
we do a lot of team building stuff.
okay.
We spend an entire weekend out at Cultus Lake.
Okay.
We have some trailers out there, and so we'll do a bunch of team building. I love bringing in speakers, and those guest speakers are going to talk to us at that time. I really value relationships.
Right.
And so I found, especially with female teams,
Yeah.
if they have strong relationships with each other, they're going to go to war. And so it's when there's this lack of trust, when they don't really know what that other person's thinking, when they're not really, does this person get me or understand me? If they don't, then there's fractures on the court. But if there's a high level of trust in knowing that that person is going to have their back and that they have their best intentions in mind, they will go to war with that person. And so we spend a lot of time building relationships.
So minus, I asked Benjo this last week, minus players failing out potentially based on their grades, have you ever had to release someone from duty?
I have not.
Lucky you.
I have not. Yeah. We've tried to do a really good job ahead of time.
Yeah.
And girls come to me, and I've brought in a recruit for a weekend, and they've gone, sorry, Ryan, no.
There.
And so we brought in earlier girls, and they've kind of said, well, we're not too sure. And we've learned to be very candid with each other. A girl will come in, and they're like, you know what? All she did was stay on her phone, talk to her boyfriend, never told me about anything, didn't really care about my life at all, and she's gone. And so, and then we've learned, like, I just back away then. And so we bring them in, not just for me to get to know them, but so that my team can earn a lot of trust with them and get a good feel for who they are as people.
Fair. And so knowing you over the years, and I had the luxury of being able to learn from you a year and a half ago in the course at Trinity, aiming towards the younger generation of coaches. Is there any words of wisdom that you would give for someone who's new to coaching on stuff they should be looking out for or trying to work on with athletes to build their team?
Yeah. The number one thing I would encourage you to do is find someone that you want to learn from and dive into that gym. Spend as much time as you can in that gym and just start pulling stuff in. I remember years ago when I was young, I asked Doug Reimer, I said, Doug, how many people into your gym? And he just won his first or second national championship. He said, no one. No one comes into my gym. I'm like, what? That makes no sense to me. And I feel this younger generation sometimes doesn't spend time in other people's gyms and learning. They just kind of, I don't know if they just don't want to do it, but I've spent 10 years, for a decade, I went down to Jim McLaughlin's gym at University of Washington and learned from him. I brought Carl in every year that I could to learn from him. Getting a good mentor is absolutely essential to becoming a great coach, I believe.
Fair. Are there things, so with staying on topic with the younger coaches, is there something that they should be implementing at the younger age categories regarding skill wise? Should they be, pushing, pushing float serves at a younger age so that they're better when the older, come U16 to 18? Or is there anything skill wise that, coaches should be really focusing on that we might be overlooking at this point as this game grows?
Yeah, the one thing that jumps out to me, and either maybe because I'm not a good coach at changing it, but what I'm finding is really hard to change is good footwork. And that's referring to your last two steps.
Okay.
I know when I grew up, I was taught that they need to be right side by side. But I really believe that good footwork needs to be staggered. There needs to be a distancing between your back foot and your front foot. And so I'm holding my phone, but if your back foot's here, your front foot's forward, and it's kind of this break step. And I'm finding that athletes that have their feet side by side, I've spent 3 years now trying to change that, and it's incredibly hard to do. And so footwork for that.
Okay.
I would think making sure that girls are landing and guys are landing in a manner that's healthy as well when they're jumping. If they get into a habit that's landing on one foot, we're starting to see the ACL injury increase higher. And so I think that's something that we need to cut out, or we have to be careful of. Teaching kids how to, like you brought up float serving. I'm working with girls now in my gym to try to take the roll off the serve. We need to serve a ball that's dead. And if they can learn their contact earlier and learning how to hit it on their hands, they're going to be much more successful down the road. So we can change a lot of things, but those things that happen really quickly, like an arm swing, is really tough to change. Footwork, which happens fast, is really tough to change. I don't think we need to have these high elbows anymore. I think we can bring our arms down here,
right?
Because we were giving a ball in socket for an arm. We weren't giving, this is awkward. Anybody for me who had a high arm swing have shoulder issues.
Okay.
And so we are going from here and we're lowering it, and it just takes so much stress off the shoulder.
Fair.
Those are a couple right there.
Now I know you're a huge believer in the pancake, and that you focus on this. What's, I know what your answer is going to be because I heard you talk about it, but for the viewers, what's your thought process on a pancake, and why do you work on it more so than probably most teams?
I find that a pancake is a clean dig. If the ball is coming down and I get my hand underneath it, it's typically going to go straight up.
Okay.
If I'm coming in screaming for that ball and I'm taking a big swipe at it, I don't know where that ball is going to go. Could go into the stands. It could go way off someplace.
Right.
And so people think it's a lazy move, but I really believe it's a clean dig. I've rarely ever, that I can think of, seen a girl not get a pancake or get their hand underneath that ball and then another person not play it.
Right.
It's just almost non-existent.
Right.
And so I think it's another way of getting the ball up. If you get caught a little bit too far back, now we want to make good reads.
For sure.
But some good hitters out there who can disguise what they're doing. And it just helps us cover the court a little bit more.
Okay, and so, with that being said, you made a comment regarding, obviously we want to be making good reads. I know Volleyball Canada is, trying to implement more for club coaches regarding cue reading. How do you implement cue reading into your program? How should we be implementing it into club programs? Because I know it's pretty easy, like anticipate where the ball is going to be. I mean, easier said than done, right? So is there a way that you deal with that?
Very simply, we have to stop watching the ball and get on to what's going on with that hitter. Okay. And so if we can start looking at this area up here, it's because that's where the ball is going to meet. And so our hitters are going to get there. If we can start watching the elbow, if I have a fast elbow, I have to hit the ball hard.
Right.
If you see my elbow slow up, I'm going to roll shot it or I'm going to off speed it. I can't go with a slow elbow and still hit hard.
Right.
And so getting a look at up in this area
right. is
going to give you a really good read as to what's going on. If you just watch the ball, and if I'm honest, I end up watching the ball in practice. I'm doing this, and I'm like, whoa, and I catch myself, right. like, what are you watching? I'm getting zero information. And so if I can look at the right stuff and just, so we spend a little bit of time, we spend 15 minutes every day, right now in training camp, and all we are doing is looking and reading that hitter and making this habit of getting out of watching the ball. It tells you nothing.
Okay, that's great advice. And now I know you have a great saying, and I stole it from you, Ryan. I'm just telling you right now, clean serving, flat and clean. What's your thought process on? Again, I know the answer on this, but I thought it's very informative regarding the passing percentages and how the passing percentages drop based on a flat and clean serve.
Yeah, if we can get that ball to cross towards that tape. And so a fleen for me is flat and clean. So the trajectory is flat and the ball has zero rotation on it. And so that motion is going to create a lot of movement.
Yeah. And I think it's just one of those earworms that I've had. When you mentioned it to me, I mentioned it with my teams that I work with, and the kids really adapt to it, that word. So if I say fleen, they're like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So what do we got here? So work on more. Are you a coach that believes on defense, wins championships, defense over offense, or is it a mix of both? What's your thought process as a head coach regarding that?
I think at the end of the game, you need to get 25 points on the board.
Okay.
And so how are 25 points going to get there? And so I know that you need to at least get 12 to 13 of them with kills.
Okay.
You're going to get 2 to 3 aces. You're going to get 2 to 3 blocks. How are you going to get those 13 kills? So if I'm going to rank things, I'm going to start looking at attacking. I think it's one of the #1 skills, but at the same time, what's going to position yourself to score points? So I believe serving is a massive part of that game. Serve receive is a big component.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you've got to get points. You've got to find a way of scoring points, and how are you going to end up doing that? I believe there's a difference in the men and the women's game.
Fair.
The women's game is a little bit more defensive than the men's game, and so I believe we need to spend more time in the women's game defensively than the men actually do.
Okay, fair. So Lee Carter's joined us, and got a question here. How often would you do a drill without a ball crossing the net?
Yeah. Preseason, we're doing a little bit of that. We're doing some partner passing, but it's been, if I think to the last 2 practices, I've started a pepper routine. So I would say maybe the first 20 minutes, there's not without a ball crossing the net. And so I've done this pepper routine that gets their arm warm, that has a little bit of a defensive component. That's my answer. I would tell Lee to go the whole practice, though, without having the ball cross the net.
Okay, fair. Now, do you believe in triple blocking in the women's game or double blocking?
I haven't seen the return from it yet. And so I'm working on a few studies right now that because we're such a defensive game, that I'm finding that the balls are getting up, and most of those balls are going to the left side. And if that left side is not available to hit the ball, then you're then almost sending like a free ball back. And so I haven't seen the return from it. So right now we just go with 2.
Go with 2. Now, is your system, playing out a system? Because we talk about a big portion of the game, especially the international level, is them playing out a system. So is this something that you try to work on in practice with sort of scramble type drills?
For sure. I think we know right now in the game that your most important people have to be on the wings.
Okay.
That they've got, you need to have a good left side hitter that's going to be able to swing out a system. And so absolutely, you've got to be able to work on that every single day, out of system, working, whether it's using the block, whether it's trying to put your opponent into trouble. And it's getting your outside hitter to make good decisions with that double ball, and not just rolling it to 6 or rolling it to the libero and giving it right back to their opponent.
Right. Okay. Now, regarding setting, there's lots of different styles. What is a preference for you? Is it a 2-step jump? Is it a 1-step jump? Is it off the left foot? Is it off the right foot? We asked Benjo this one, so I'm interested to hear your thought process on this.
I am a right foot pivot guy all the way.
Okay.
But I'm also coaching in the men's world. My sons have all been coming through, and so I've been learning both ways. And so I think I've got a pretty good idea of how the right foot pivot works, and then the 2 foots jump. And I'm literally teaching my sons differently than what I'm teaching my girls, because I don't want to wreck my sons. But when it comes to my gym, I love the right foot pivot.
Awesome. Now, as a coach, I mean, I'm always trying to engage athletes at the U10 to U14 level. How do we keep this game fun to keep kids staying in the game, You obviously coached your son heading, up the age groups, and now he's going to be playing for Trinity next year. Is there something that you did at an early age with your son and the players on that team that kept them engaged in a fun environment?
Yeah, we competed a ton.
Okay.
These guys learned to compete, and Brody's group was a special group. They won 4 national championships in a row, but I think a lot of it had to do with how they competed every day. But then we also created this learning component. And so we learned a lot about volleyball. We care. You can have a lot of fun, but you have a lot of fun through learning and seeing yourself getting better, and a lot of fun through competing. And so I think with guys, we do a ton of that. And I think with girls, it's not that you do competing any less, but I think girls can take a little bit more pride in the technique and the systems that you're working. Right. We were a little bit more refined with the girls teams than we are the guys teams.
And I know you help out a lot with Fraser Valley Volleyball Club, which is an extremely strong club in the BC division. Is there something that you implement overseeing that at the U16 to 18 level? Is there something that you tell coaches, hey, we need to work on this so that they're potentially Trinity Western ready, or whatever university they go to?
Yeah. I want the coaches to follow the laws of learning. Ideally, I've asked the coaches to coach very similar systems to what we are, whether a little bit more of a bunch read, our defensive positioning, where we're positioning our defenders. And I'm seeing it. I've got 4 new girls coming in to our system this year, and 3 of them came through Fraser Valley, and they're in it right away. And the one is in this major learning curve of trying to figure out what she needs to do and how she needs to do it. And so I feel there's a nice advantage when they've come through our system, or similar systems that are similar that help them be successful here. And so we've tried to put that in place and ask our coaches to teach similar.
Okay, fair. And so we've obviously seen this sport grow nationwide. How do you feel, how do we keep it growing, or do you think it's plateaued for a while? What can we do as coaches to make this sport grow so that you have more kids to choose from in future seasons?
We need to steal more from basketball.
Okay. Or soft.
I think we've actually done that a lot. I think we need, if we can find a way of getting into more elementary schools. Like, my wife has just started a program, and she's got 60 kids at this younger age, and they're playing 4-on-4. 6-on-6 is boring at the older age. And so if we can get these younger kids playing 4-on-4, I'm watching my youngest son right now, and the kids around him, their growth is just on a very, very steep curve. And right now we're running camps in the gym behind us, and there's these kids have come through the 4-on-4 program, and they are light years ahead of other people who have just done 6-on-6. And so I think that's one of the #1 ways that we can get learning a lot faster and getting them started earlier.
Okay. Now you obviously you're set in BC there, and Volleyball BC I got to work with at provincials this past season. They have a U10 to 12 league. Is this something that other provinces should be following? Because I thought it was great personally, where they brought the back line in and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts?
I think if we can start leagues in elementary schools and get them playing earlier, we're going to be ahead of, like, you look at the U.S. programs and different U.S. teams and the high-end U.S. players, like, they've been playing for so many years and they've started younger, and the amount that they've put in is making them better. And so if we can get them controlling, like I just peppered this morning with my youngest son, he's 12 years old. And by far, I couldn't believe how well, and his control, it was a ton of fun. We kept the ball alive. And if we can get them playing at 10 years old.
So thanks everyone.